What's up guys, LeopoldTheBrave here, and in today's video I'm going to talk to you about how Disney's Chicken Little not only is it bad, but is even good? But before we get into anything, let's discuss why I'm making this video. Why I'm defending this movie's non-existent honor. And I will admit, part of it is nostalgia. I saw it at about 8 years old right when it came out. A point in my life where I pretty much just liked anything bouncy and hyperactive like this movie. But as I aged and time went on, my love for this movie just kinda stuck, and even grew some, while many other things I used to adore faded into the back of my mind and eventually became things I'd full-on loathe. Now, I've been on the internet for a very long time. Sure, this account that I'm using wasn't created until 2014, but this is far from my first one. You don't understand, guys. I've been here since 2006. Clay World, Smosh, Sean Spaz 16. You ever heard of Sean Spaz 16 Sonic bloopers? No, of course you haven't. You have to be in the know to know, you know?
Sonic, get up. We have to make Sonic Blooper 6. I don't wanna.
And after hearing pretty much nothing about Chicken Little on the entire internet for many years, suddenly, almost a decade later, an infamously mysterious review entered the website, labeling Chicken Little as an atrocity. And ever since then, this movie has never heard the end of it. Most recently, it showed up in the second to last spot of Shafrillis' Disney ranking video. And the funny Tamatoa Crabman did challenge us to share our own different opinions with our own video essays. So Shafrillis, if you're watching, I hope this video makes you go, "That's a bit silly," as I desperately try to defend this movie. Chapter 1, The Mindset. So the first problem with this movie is the mindset people have when going into it. Oh yeah, I'm off to a great start, blaming the viewers instead of the movie. But let me explain. When people go into this movie, because it's Disney, they try to review it as a Lion King, or a Beauty and the Beast, instead of what it actually is. A Madagascar, an Emperor's New Groove, which yes is Disney too, but you know what I mean. It has a very different tone. It's very fast-paced, lots of slapstick, fourth wall breaking, pop culture references, that whole deal. I'm not trying to say Chicken Little is a masterpiece on the level of Emperor's New Groove, but if you tried to review Emperor's New Groove as a Beauty and the Beast, it'd be terrible too. Kuzco, the protagonist we're supposed to be rooting for, starts off the movie with an attempted execution of an elderly man for simply bumping into him, gets turned into a llama and spends the entire movie distrusting and backstabbing the only person trying to help him, and doesn't change until he officially hits rock bottom where he's essentially forced to. Not to mention that also the entire time this movie was going on, he actually had to have an internal discussion on whether or not he should destroy a town to build a pool. But Buck Cluck is hard to forgive. I'm sorry, but if the Beast had been acting anything like Kuzco, I doubt that movie would have won so many awards. Kuzco only works because of how the rest of the movie is. Kronk and Yzma, the comedy, the super fast animation, it's its own thing. So clear your mind of all the negative Chicken Little reviews you've seen, and drain any expectations you have of it being like Beauty and the Beast, and let's go into this movie together with a new mindset of looking at it for what it is instead of what it isn't. No, really, if you're disappointed by it not being Beauty and the Beast when this is its romantic resolution, it's your own fault.
By the way, I'd like to say I've always found you extremely attractive.
Chapter 2, Buck Cluck. Here's a brief synopsis of the entire movie. The titular character Chicken Little throws the town into panic when he believes the sky is falling. Having no proof for his claims though, he makes an embarrassment out of himself in front of the whole town, including his father Buck Cluck. As this little blunder lingers on in everyone's minds, Chicken Little decides to set out to do something spectacular to make everyone forget the whole sky falling mistake. But it's not really the town's respect he's after. The movie does a pretty decent job at establishing that he never was popular to begin with. Chicken Little doesn't really care what anyone thinks. He stands up for himself against bullies, and he's proven to be very resourceful and independent despite his small size. What Chicken Little really wants is the approval of his father. His father being the biggest point of criticism towards this entire movie. People hate Buck Cluck. But I'm actually here to defend him because I believe he's a bit misunderstood. Everyone makes a huge deal about how he didn't immediately support Chicken Little when he believed the sky was falling, despite Chicken Little not having any proof for his claims. And they think he's a cruel father for being embarrassed by his son. Guys, it's not that offensive. Kids are embarrassing. Your future kids will be embarrassing. When you were a kid, you were probably embarrassing. I guarantee you 90% of the things you did between the ages of 3 and 22 embarrassed your parents. It's no big deal. But anyways, back to the support. So, Buck Cluck didn't support Chicken Little when he believed the sky was falling. But there's something else he doesn't do in the scene, which I'd argue points to him being a good parent. He doesn't punish Chicken Little. He doesn't scold Chicken Little, he doesn't chew him out behind closed doors, he doesn't ground Chicken Little, he doesn't send him to his room. Throughout the entire movie, no matter what Chicken Little does to cause a panic, telling everyone the sky is falling, getting in trouble at school, telling everyone there's aliens, Buck Cluck never shows any hate or anger towards him. And he especially doesn't get into screaming matches with Chicken Little in front of the entire cast, blaming him for everything going wrong in the movie, and only apologizing when he's at rock bottom where he's forced to. But let's give Abuela a break. She's traumatized because she lost someone like 40 years ago. I mean, it's not like Buck Cluck has an excuse where he's still trying to figure out how to be a single parent after losing a spouse in what appears to be no more than 2 years ago. Oh, wait a minute. That's right. Yeah, if you can forgive Abuela, you can forgive Buck Cluck. Disney has done so much worse in terms of parenting. Besides, there are plenty of points in the movie where Buck Cluck does show support towards Chicken Little. For example, when Chicken Little suggests trying out baseball. Buck Cluck hesitates at the idea at first. Not because Chicken Little's trying to put himself out there, he suggests other things he can do, like chess or Glee Club. He's hesitant about baseball because of Chicken Little's size, not anything to do with the whole sky falling incident. And it's a pretty rational concern. Chicken Little's size is an obvious allegory for disability, as the world doesn't accommodate for it and he has to find other methods around everyday tasks. I myself am disabled and gave a few sports a shot, and I would have greatly appreciated if my parents got me to do something else instead. Because ooh boy, that was self-esteem crushing. Besides, despite the hesitation, Buck lets him join and try out anyways. Buck Cluck is not a bad father, he's just not used to doing this parenting thing by himself, and that's okay. His arc in the movie is learning how to do it. Chapter 3: The Other Critiques. Now that we've gotten Buck Cluck out of the way, let's talk about the other problems people have with this movie that are also blown way out of proportion. If you've never seen anything from Chicken Little or never seen any reviews, and this is somehow your first exposure to it, the first thing you may have noticed is the animation, and how it doesn't exactly hold up well against Disney's modern standards, or how it didn't even meet those standards at the time it came out. And yeah, I kinda agree with this one. Even for 2005, the lighting and rendering is not that great. The daytime sky is somehow darker than the grass at some points. And some of the background characters have caught a serious case of the ugly. However, animation quality doesn't exactly determine movie quality all on its own. Take Hoodwinked, for example, a movie that came out a year after Chicken Little, but looks like it came out 15 years before. 80% of the shots in this movie are downright scary, but it doesn't matter, it's a great movie anyways and lots of people love it, just because of the writing and characters alone. Besides, though the lighting and rendering of Chicken Little leaves a lot to be desired, it's not all bad. The set designs, the main character designs, and especially the character animation and facial expressions are all fantastic. Again, if you try to compare it to the lifelike and realistic movements of Beauty and the Beast or Frozen or something, it'll obviously come up short. But when comparing it to other fast-paced 2D emulating 3D movies like Madagascar and Captain Underpants, it's right up there. Everything is just so expressive and fun, even the imperfections of the shapes and the architecture. Chicken Little's house is literally a giant chicken coop, and he has a little front door just for him, it's so good! Another issue people have is with the town. They say the town is mean-spirited, and thus the movie as a whole is mean-spirited. But to be honest, the only townspeople that directly go after Chicken Little are ones that would naturally attack the underdog in this kind of movie anyways. The school bully, the gym teacher. Everyone else actually targets Buck Cluck and gets onto him for not keeping an eye on Chicken Little and letting him have access to the town's alarm system. At the beginning of the movie, we're told there's going to be a movie about Chicken Little's sky falling incident, there's bumper stickers, commemorative plates. But it's just a quick gag at the beginning and none of that stuff plays into the plot as a whole. Nobody in the movie aside from the school bully goes out of their way to make things harder for Chicken Little. He still gets to go out with his friends, he's not banned from joining the baseball team, and the townspeople do hear him out both times he rings the alarms, until he's unable to prove what he claims. And it's not just Chicken Little. Even when he has his friends vouching for him, the townspeople still don't believe. Because it is unbelievable. The movie establishes that there was an incident like this before the sky falling thing. The icy blue stuff that fell from the sky, which everyone believed to be from space at first, but turned out to actually be frozen pee from a jet. But nope, all the reviewers ignored that bit of world building and just focused on the fact that it mentioned pee, and said the movie had too much toilet humor, despite that only being one of 2 instances of that in the entire movie. Yeah, reviewers of this movie tend to have a habit of just ignoring things and then acting like they came out of nowhere. For example, there's this one moment everyone overreacts to where Runt the pig starts singing I Will Survive, and they're like, what? That's his character development? He just gets brave out of nowhere when they mention a song? Even though the movie establishes twice beforehand that Runt uses these survival-themed songs to help calm himself down in times of stress. And then claiming the movie has no identity, saying how it was just a father-son baseball movie at first and then all of a sudden there's aliens. Even though the alien stuff came in way before the halfway point at 35 minutes into the movie and had plenty of foreshadowing beforehand. So there you have it. Everyone's going into this movie already prepared to hate it for not achieving a goal that it never set out to reach in the first place, because it's trying to do something totally different instead. Buck Cluck honestly is not that bad of a father. Disney has way worse parents that it tries to justify. And hating him and calling him the villain of this movie is more of a meme at this point than it is actual fact. And so many of the other negative things people say about this movie are flat out lies or the result of not paying attention. So there you go. Now that I've defended this movie and shown that it's not bad, how is it actually good? I guess we should start with Chapter 4, The Good Stuff, Buck Cluck's Redemption. This is the conclusion to the segment earlier where I explained how Buck Cluck isn't that bad of a father, as I now explain to you how he's actually a bit of a good one. Now when I say Buck Cluck is a bit of a good parent, that doesn't mean I'm saying he's completely flawless. His arc is one of the most significant in the entire movie. Buck is a bit unreceptive to emotion, thinking his son is in the same mindset as him. At the beginning of the movie, Buck has already put the sky falling thing behind him. He's just frustrated that the town still remembers. Meanwhile, Chicken Little never really cared what the town thinks, they already judged him based on his size. He just wants his father's approval. So when Buck Cluck is talking and joking about the sky falling incident like it's nothing, it makes Chicken Little feel like Buck is completely ashamed of him, which Buck doesn't even realize he's doing. So now, Chicken Little will spend the rest of his movie trying to achieve a grand goal to get his father's approval back. Meanwhile, Buck is hoping that Chicken Little will lay low and not make any news so the town will forget the sky falling incident and get off Chicken Little's back. Buck Cluck and Chicken Little have completely conflicting goals, and they don't even realize because they're not talking things out. That's the point of their whole arc in the movie, that they both need to learn to just open up. It's why the baseball game doesn't fix everything. Chicken Little believes winning the game won over Buck Cluck's approval and that Buck will finally put the sky falling thing behind him. However, by this point, Buck had already put the sky falling thing behind him, and is just hoping that winning the game will help get the townspeople off Chicken Little's back, which Chicken Little never really cared about, and just wanted Buck's approval. So they both believe they accomplished their goals, but in reality everything stayed the same, because they didn't talk things through. So when Chicken Little tries to warn the town about aliens later that night and has no proof for his claims, that Band-Aid solution rips off. And even when Chicken Little is proven right about the sky falling thing and the alien thing the next day, Buck still isn't being receptive to Chicken Little and is just trying to pull him to safety. Buck doesn't start listening or understanding until Chicken Little finally tells him what the problem is. And this moment of redemption is actually so good. Upon finally learning what Chicken Little has been feeling the entire time, Buck begins to explain how he never realized he was making Chicken Little feel this way and how he never meant to do it, but doesn't make excuses for himself. He realizes that it doesn't matter what he meant or didn't mean. He still caused it. He admits that Chicken Little's right. He admits that he's no good at this talking stuff like his wife was. He doesn't even promise change or that things will instantly get better. No sugarcoating. He apologizes and acknowledges that he has a lot of work to do on himself, completely validating Chicken Little's feelings. And after the validation, he gives reassurance, letting Chicken Little know that no matter what happens, he'll always love him, and apologizes that his emotional unavailability made Chicken Little feel like that was something he had to earn. It's a very sweet and well done redemption scene, and I like how Buck doesn't instantly get better. He slips up right away and then immediately does that thing where he overcompensates. It's a lot more realistic than other Disney redemptions, and I love it for that.
That's bad parenting, and I should know.
Chapter 5, The Good Stuff, The Characters. We've already talked about Chicken Little and Buck Cluck plenty, so let's move on. There's Chicken Little's best friend, Abby Mallard, aka the Ugly Duckling. She's very smart, assertive, and is very clearly the leader of the group. She doesn't let mockery of her appearance faze her, and she uses girly teen magazines to give advice and help her friends out. She has a bit of a crush on Chicken Little, and her friendship with him is totally believable. In fact, the whole friend group is very well done. This is one of the best friend groups in any animated film. Their chemistry is so good. You can absolutely see and understand how they all came together to be friends and how they've stayed friends for so long. It's an amazingly good and fun friend group dynamic that Disney wouldn't come close to for years and years until Turning Red, and even that one can still make you question their bonds sometimes. Chicken Little's friend group also includes Fish Out of Water. He just likes to have fun and doesn't care too much about the plot going on, and we love him for it. Then we come to one of the best characters in the movie, Runt of the Litter. He's big and he's cowardly, but he still tries his best. He runs as fast as he can to keep up with his friends. Despite his hesitation at first, he still goes onto the spooky alien ship, and his friends genuinely care for him and help him overcome his shortcomings. Also, he's just really funny, being voiced by Steve Zahn, aka the dad from Diary of a Wimpy Kid, aka the Ain't Got Rhythm guy from Phineas and Ferb. Chapter 6, The Good Stuff, The Presentation. Steve Zahn as Runt isn't the only good bit of casting in this movie. Joan Cusack as Abby is also great. You may recognize her as Jessie from the Toy Story series, and just like her role as Jessie, she puts everything into her performance here. Gary Marshall as Buck Cluck is also a lot of fun with all of his fatherly ramblings and dad noises. But of course, the star of the show is Zach Braff as Chicken Little. I don't know what else Zach Braff has done. I mean, I think he was on BoJack Horseman. But it doesn't matter. Nothing else he does could ever outshine what he does as Chicken Little. It's one of my favorite animated character castings ever.
Because modern mallard says avoiding closure can lead to molting, and I'm already small, and on top of that, I don't think I could handle being bald.
He gives so much of his energy to this role, and his back and forth with other characters, especially during the mundane conversations, is always great to watch. The casting is actually one of the parts of the movie where I've never heard any criticism. Everyone involved really does give it their all, and it brings so much of this movie to life. In addition to the great voice cast in their performances, there's also the soundtrack. One Little Slip, All I Know, Stir It Up, they have music from R.E.M., Spice Girls, and they even cover an Elton John song in the credits, easily rivaling Shrek and Megamind in terms of soundtrack. The story is also very well told with great pacing and no filler. Each scene feels like it's meant to be there and furthers the plot along. Now you may ask yourself, what about that one scene where Chicken Little does have the piece of the sky in possession? Why doesn't he tell his dad right there? He has evidence. And, well, I'll answer your question with another question. Why didn't Dolores tell the whole family she knew Bruno was still in the house? Simple answer for both questions, because then the movie would be over. At least in Chicken Little's case, it fits his character and the story, because he doesn't want to bring up the sky stuff again, he just wants it all behind him. Dolores doesn't have an excuse. The movie establishes she can't keep her mouth shut and keep a secret, but she doesn't rat out Bruno because unexplained reasons. That's what, 2 times now where I've shown Chicken Little has had objectively better written moments than Encanto? Once again, Chicken Little is trying to be a super fun, zany, and wacky movie like Madagascar. It's not even attempting to be one of those super serious, emotionally deep Disney movies like Encanto. And yet it's still succeeding in some areas where those movies slip up. Chapter 7. Conclusion. Now I know throughout this whole review, I've been comparing Chicken Little to other movies, despite the fact that I said it needs to be looked at as its own thing. But none of those movies were brought up to say Chicken Little was entirely better than them. All the movies I've mentioned, Encanto, Emperor's New Groove, Hoodwinked, and more, were merely mentioned to show some double standards when it comes to these reviews. Many of the things that are seen as flaws in Chicken Little are flat out lies, are exaggerated to cartoonish proportions, or are super easily brushed aside and forgiven in other movies that are trying to be taken more seriously. Chicken Little may not be the ideal Disney movie with breathtaking visuals, catchy musical numbers, and super emotional moments that make you bawl your eyes out, but it's far from their worst movie, and it's definitely a great time all on its own. It sets out to accomplish very different goals, and I think it succeeds in every single one of them. I mean, I definitely still watch this 100 times over before watching Ralph Breaks the Internet, Frozen 2, Big Hero 6, Pocahontas. But let me know what you guys think. Do you also believe Chicken Little is so hated on because it's a meme to do so? Or even after hearing me out, are you still not a fan of it? It's fine if you're not. No matter how you feel about this movie, I just hope you gave it another honest chance, because every day is a new day.